شباب أمتنا أعيدوا عهدنا بالعلم والإيمان نبني مجدنا.
أخلاقكم كالنور من قبس الهدى وشعاركم في الكون سنة أحمدا. أخلاقكم كالنور من قبس.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين به ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا وأسوتنا وقائدنا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه أجمعين وعلى كل من تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا يا رب العالمين. وبعد. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, after thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for granting me the ability and all of you to be here today for a very important session we've been hearing since after Salat al-Maghrib. It's an honor and a privilege for me to be with you. I would like to thank the organizers of today's very important event, the Masjid committee, the members, the volunteers behind this program, and of course Sheikh Asim Rashid, who is a very good, beloved, close friend, a friend of the family actually. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept his efforts and reward him, and all the other speakers who spoke before him, who talked about some very important topics. As Sheikh Asim mentioned, that the title that I have before me, Radicalization, Islam and Radicalization. I want to talk about some basic points, or a few points that inshallah, some of them, I don't want to repeat what's already been covered, because all these topics, they are all related. So the talk earlier on about the rules of jihad and warfare, and some of the issues that took place that were discussed in the question and answer session, which was actually very, very beneficial. They are all related, so I may slightly just point towards some of these issues, but I'm going to try my best not to repeat and talk about issues which have not been covered. Our deen, the deen of Islam, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with, this ummah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, all the teachings of Islam and all the teachings in the ummah of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they are all teachings of moderation. They have teachings of i'tidal, moderation, and this is why the Quran says, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. We have made you a nation, we have made you a ummah that is wasata, that's of moderation. It's a moderate ummah. It's a nation which is neither to the right, neither to the left. There is no ifrat and tafrit. There is no extreme either way. And this is why when we look at all the laws of Islam and of the Sharia, all the ahkam, from aqaid, from the belief system, all the way to all the laws of salat and fasting and hajj and zakat and everything, all of it teaches moderation. This is the true path and the straight path. This is the path that we recite in Surah Al-Fatiha on a daily basis. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Oh Allah, guide us to the straight path. This is a straight path of moderation, which is between غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَالضَّالِّينَ, which is between the one on the right, which is مَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ, the path. This is why this صِرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ. Oh Allah, guide us to the path. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, guide us to the right path, which is the path of those people, and amta alayhim, those people whom you favored. And in another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains those people whom He favored. أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَصِدِّيقِينَ وَشُهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ, the paths of the prophets and the righteous and the truthful, etc. So this is the path. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم, the middle path. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ, O Allah, not the path of the people upon whom was your wrath. وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ, and neither the path of the people who are deviated. In other words, not the path on the right, not the path on the left. And this particular, the tafsir of this surah, it was referring to, at that time, Allah was referring to the Christians and the Jews, that some of them went to the right and some of them went to the left. Some of them were just based on emotions and just being passive, and others to the right where everything was extreme and extremism, etc. There's a long tafsir behind the surah, of course. But the point here is that this whole deen, Islam, every law we look at from Aqidah, every hukm from the ahkam of Sharia, take for marriage. Marriage is a teaching which is based on moderation, which is based on i'tidal. You have extreme to the right, where people, some of the early nations, they went into rahbaniyah, living a life of abstinence, living a life of unmarried life. That they said that striving and struggling and mujahadah, to be very close to Allah, you can't get married. You have to just struggle, do jihad against yourself. And on the other hand, we have the extreme to the left today, that you fulfill your desires in any way, shape or form. Whether outside marriage or inside marriage, whether it's in a halal way or a haram way, whether with the same gender or another gender or whatever. Oh, it's a liberal society. Right is an extreme, left is an extreme. Nikah, Allah says, it's in the middle. This is just two examples I've given. But the whole deen is based on balance, it's based on moderation, it's based on i'tidal, it's based on a path which is in between ifrat and tafrit, a path which is in between the right and the left. So this is the middle way, and this is the path that we have been given, and this is the path that we have to follow, and this is the path that has been taught by the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's the path that has been taught by his companions, Sahaba radiallahu anhum. It's the path that has been followed after them by the tabi'un, the followers of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, and continuously in every aspect of our deen throughout the world. And this is the path of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. But what's happened today, we find that there are elements, and we'll have extreme on both sides. You see, this what we call tatarruf ad-dini, or the religious extremism, or being a radical. Again, I don't like terms like Sheikh Asim mentioned, that these terms being fundamental or being extremist or being conservative, everyone has their own definition of terms. Being a terrorist in itself, people have their own definition of what that means. People use these terms for their own needs and for their own reasons. So we don't need to get bogged down with these terms or concentrate ourselves on terms. But what we need to understand is the reality behind these issues. Now we have extremes on both sides today. And especially I want to talk about this religious extremism, because that's the extreme on the right. I don't want to talk about the extreme on the left, because we know that's wrong and being in a liberal society. But the extreme where we go overboard, being harsh when it comes to religion, from aspects of aqidah, from aspects of belief, from aspects of practicing faith, from aspects of how to live with fellow Muslims and non-Muslims. One of the crises and one of the problems of today's society, one of the greatest problems is ignorance, jahl. It's the greatest problem today, especially in our Western countries. It's always been a crisis. A downfall of a nation is based on jahl. There's no nation, and this is why Allah says in the Quran, يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. Allah elevates and raises those people who believe, and those who've been given ilm, being granted knowledge, Allah elevates them. Humanity is elevated. Muslims are elevated with knowledge of deen, knowledge of Islam, knowledge of the world. With ilm, with knowledge, a person becomes elevated, has a rank, has a position, has a status, has a maqam, has a respect in the community, and makes a person tolerant. That's why ignorance creates intolerance. Ilm creates hilm. You see, these words are rhyming. Ignorance, which is opposite of ilm. Ignorance is jahl. Ignorance creates intolerance. All the people you find who are intolerant, not having the ability to accept another community, another nation, another belief system, or not, when I mean accept, meaning not being able to, even within Muslims, not willing to sort of agree to disagree, being harsh. One of the greatest problems is jahl, and that jahl, ignorance, is the cause of intolerance. Because ilm, if someone acquired ilm, if someone acquired knowledge, it would create hilm, which is forbearance, which is tolerance. So ilm, hilm, ilm, tolerance. Jahl, ignorance, creates intolerance. And this is the greatest problem today. That people have not acquired knowledge. There are people who just convert to Islam, they've been Muslims for 2 weeks, and there they are on the way for jihad. They don't know the basics of Islam. Not the basics of Islam. There are people who are not practicing Islam. There were gangsters on the streets dealing with drugs. Now they become gangsters in another way. It's the same mentality, the same emotions that they had, which they were using in a different way, that suddenly, and they become harsh. First of all, the greatest, the harshness that they have, it leads them, and there's actually a hadith in the Sunnah of Imam al-Tirmidhi, the Messenger of Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentions in a hadith, and this hadith is actually very pertinent. People learn a few verses of the Quran, few ahadith, they look at them literally, not the way we've explained today, and that's it, they use them. فَاقْتُلُوا الْمُشْرِكِينَ حَيْثُ وَجَدْتُمُوهُمْ. Kill the mushrikeen wherever you find them, it's clear. Literal translation, kill the polytheist mushrik wherever you find them. You find them on, you guys have streets by numbers, isn't it? Not like we have in England, you know, this street here is 16th Avenue or 123 Avenue or something. So فَاقْتُلُوا الْمُشْرِكِينَ حَيْثُ وَجَدْتُمُوهُمْ. Wherever you find them. You find them in Vancouver, kill the mushrik. That's what literally the ayah indicates. So those people who have not learned, who have not gone through a system of learning, 10, 15 years of scholarly study under traditional ulama and scholars, when they don't get that training, this is why this happens. And this is why we find that wherever there's these kind of extremist or unlawful Islamic activities that take place, very rarely you'll find scholars or students, proper students. Maybe beginners, yes. But scholars, imams, and proper students, advanced students of knowledge, very rarely you find. Very rarely involved in these kind of activities. And this is why when we speak to the policymakers in the UK, we actually tell them that have a connection with scholars, have a connection with the imams. Our governments need to have connection with imams. These are the people who have knowledge, who will actually convey the message. So ignorance is the biggest root. And this is why the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a hadith, he said, "Inna min wara'ikum ayyaman." He predicted this. "Inna min wara'ikum ayyaman yurfa'u fiha al-ilm wa yakthur al-harj." Indeed, there will be days that will come, soon days will come, in which yurfa'u al-ilm, knowledge will be uplifted, knowledge will be taken away, and haraj will exceed. The companions asked, O Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what is that haraj? He said, al-qatl, killing. See the way the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam connected the two. Days will come, ilm will be uplifted, and killing will be in abundance. So the erasing or the upliftment of ilm is more or less, this is what it's indicating, causing the killings. And that's why another hadith, he said, one of the signs of Qiyamah is لا يدري القاتل فيما قتل ولا يدري المقتول فيما قتل, أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. People, you know, there'll be a time where people will not know, they'll be killing, nobody will know, the killer won't know why he's killing, and the one killed, مقتول فيما قتل, he doesn't know why he's been killed. Shooting in abundance. There was shootings in Edmonton, was it recently, a couple of days ago, and the person shot himself. People shoot. I mean, even non-Muslims do this. It's not just about Muslims. We have to put that in context as well. You know, sometimes, you know, it's some crazy guy. He's just shot a few people. Some of these people are crazy. They are mentally ill. There are lots of people, Muslims, who are unstable, psychologically, mentally unstable. It's our job to make them stable, but they are unstable. And they are then used and taken advantage of by other people who are extreme in themselves. Sometimes they are taken advantage by some non-Muslims, and they are made to do that. Allahu A'lam, Allah knows best. But a lot of them are unstable psychologically. But if his name is John, then it's a isolated John incident. If his name is Muhammad, then it's terrorism. This is the problem. If it's just one random guy, there's billions of Muslims, one random guy, he shot somebody, killed somebody. If that guy was John, even though he's a Christian, but no, they don't say it's to do with the faith of Christianity. No. This is another problem, the media. But we live in those times. This is our challenge, and we can't really do anything about this. But this is a challenge. So the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned this. So one of the main root causes is jahl, ignorance. Ignorance makes you harsh. Being a radical and radicalization, this is the biggest root. Ilm needs to spread. Knowledge, brothers and sisters, knowledge needs to spread. We need to teach ourselves, we need to teach our communities, our youngsters, our children. Knowledge, deep knowledge of Islam. Once we do teach, because once there's ignorance, it makes you harsh. Harsh not just against non-Muslims. Most of these people are harsh on fellow Muslims. You know the verse of the Quran, I think Mufti Asim, they were talking about in the question and answers. أَشِدَّاءُ عَلَى الْكُفَّارِ رُحَمَاءُ بَيْنَهُم. They are extreme. There's a context behind it. Extreme on the disbelievers, harsh on the disbelievers, but loving amongst each other. Most of these people are extreme and harsh on the Muslims. If you don't follow my group, you're a kafir. The problem of kufr. Either someone's a kafir, akhi, you're a kafir, you're a mushrik, you're a mubtadi', you're a person of bid'ah. Very easy. We have factories of kufr open. Anyone who doesn't pray like us or does something slightly differently, straight away, akhi, you're a mushrik, you're a kafir, you've left the path of Islam. This is the greatest bid'ah today, is to call people kafir. And Mufti Asim mentioned the basic three things. Some of the ulama have given a definition, إِنْكَارُ مَا عُلِمَ مِنَ الدِّينِ بِالضَّرُورَةِ. The definition is of kufr. It's someone who rejects the basic necessities of Islam. Someone who rejects those things that are known to be of Islam by necessity. Someone says, I don't believe in Allah, a'udhu billah. If somebody says that, yes, person left Islam. Someone says, I don't believe in the messenger of Allah. The basic things that every child knows. I don't believe in the hereafter, a'udhu billah. Or he says, I don't believe in the Quran. Or I don't believe in the hellfire or paradise. These basics. Or I don't believe in qadr. That's why we say, Amantu billahi wa malaikatihi wa kutubihi wa rasulihi wal yawmil akhir wal qadri khayri wa sharri. Basic things of Islam. If someone rejects them, that person is a kafir. And then that's it. You just say this person is a kafir. It's not a swear word. It's not a swear word. It's just a hukam shari'i. It's just like, this applies to you. You're a kafir. That's it. Nothing else. Not after that you're this and your dad's a kafir as well and your mom's one as well and all of that. It's just a term used. There's no problem with that. So this is one of the phenomena. You know, in the Arab world recently, they actually had this, even in Saudi Arabia, in Hijaz, I like to use the word Hijaz, they had this whole conference, Zahiratu Takfir, the phenomena of Takfir, because the government in Hijaz, in Saudi Arabia, they are having a problem. Every group, one sheikh with his group are calling every other sheikh's groups kafir. In Saudi, one sheikh with his group, fatwa of kufr of another sheikh. Somebody gave a fatwa of kufr on many of them have given the fatwa of kufr on the imams of haram. Muslims living in Saudi Arabia, Hijaz, they have given fatwas of kufr on Sheikh Sudais, Abdurrahman and Sudais and Shuraim and everybody, because they support or the regime or this or that. There's nobody left. Brother, you and your 25 people, there's a massive Jannah of Allah down there. You're going to get bored down there. You can't even have a good, soccer match. You don't have soccer here. You have what? Baseball or ice hockey or whatever these funny sports games you have. You need to play soccer. But Jannah of Allah is massive. This is a problem. Everyone, that's it. Kafir, 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 kafir. Harsh on the believers. If not kafir, then the next problem because jahl creates that. We haven't learned tolerance. A few basic things here and there and you've become a gangster and you've joined a group. This happens in the UK as well. People are harsh. There's a sheikh fulan, Abu fulan, such Amish. This is my sheikh and my small posse or group of flock, and this is my following, and we believe, and there's one sheikh in Saudi Arabia or one in there. The only 2-3 sheikhs you believe in is in this tribalism in Islam. This is one of the greatest problems in any way, shape or form. whether it's in the subcontinent, whether someone goes into Tabligh Jama'ah and becomes a tribalist Muslim, or becomes a Sufi with a Sufi Shaykh and becomes a tribalist or a Salafi or whatever, anyone who's a tribalist, Islam has nothing to do with tribalism, sorry to be frank. We need to be open, our hearts need to be open. You can follow a particular way, you can follow a particular methodology, but be open, the vastness of the heart. This is what the Sahaba taught. They disagreed. Imam Ahmad, somebody wrote a book, differences of opinion about some issues. He called it Kitab al-Ikhtilaf, the book of difference of opinion. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal radiallahu anhu said to him, don't call it La tusammihi Kitab al-Ikhtilaf, sammihi Kitab al-Sa'a. Call it the book of vastness, of opening. There's ease in religion. The Sahaba disagreed, but they agreed to disagree. This is why there's this phenomena of calling people kafir. If not, then you're a mushrik. Someone slowly, you don't follow this aqidah, you're a mushrik. You don't follow that aqidah, you're a mushrik. Brother, your granddad was a mushrik as well, and everybody in the subcontinent was a mushrik. Become a Muslim again. This takfir, and that's why one of them said in Arabic, يبدأ, this will sound nice to Sheikh Hasim and the others who know Arabic, يبدأ بالتكفير وينتهي بالتفجير. It starts with takfir, with calling people kafir, وَيَنْتَهِي بِالتَّفْجِيرِ, and ends with blowing buildings. It begins with takfir, you start calling people kafir, because once you call people kafir, these people, when they kill innocent people, Muslims also, according to them, we're not Muslims. According to many of them, we're not Muslims. Sitting in this, we offer Salatul Isha for the sake of Allah. But I'm telling you, I've spoken myself to people who do not consider us to be Muslims. You might say, why? What have I done wrong? What have you done wrong? You're living in Canada, you're a kafir according to that person. Living in Canada, you're a kafir. That's it. I'm not saying that to you. Don't take it out of context, just delete the beginning and after, and I said this. I'm quoting. All of us, we pay tax. Our blood is halal. By paying tax in this country, we are supporting. I've spoken myself to people like this. People have sent questions, emails, saying this clearly, that all the people, we are not innocent. In Islam, killing innocent civilians, non-combatants is haram. But what they say, anyone who lives in a country, by association, by paying your taxes, and by association, you are part of the regime, you are combatants, you are not civilians anymore. And many, according to them, many of us we've left Islam. So who remains a Muslim? A small group with a small sheikh, Abu Fulan bin Fulan, and a small group with the 25 people, and then they become whatever, they few groups. So this is why takfir, it's a very big issue, this takfir issue. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the hadith of Bukhari and elsewhere, he said, إِذَا قَالَ لِأَخِيهِ يَا كَافِرْ فَقَدْ بَأَ بِهِ أَحَدُهُمَا أو لِصَاحِبِهِ. If anyone calls his brother kafir, then one of them returns with it. Either the person is actually a kafir, and if not, then it returns back to you. Therefore, this takfir is a big issue. It's a very delicate issue. If you look at it in the history, Muslims never, even the deviant groups, like the Khawarij and the Mu'tazila and the Qadariyya and Jabariyya, they never, they were very careful, the Salaf, the early Muslims, they were extremely careful and precautious in using the term kafir for anyone, to the point Hajjaj bin Yusuf was not even called kafir. He killed hundreds of people, still, they prayed salah behind him. He was a tyrant ruler. Some of the Sahaba companions, radiyallahu anhum, they used to offer salah behind Hajjaj bin Yusuf, the murderer. Somebody said, why do you pray behind him? He said, إِذَا قَالَ حَيَّ عَلَى الصَّلَاةِ أَجَبْنَاهُمْ وَإِذَا قَالَ حَيَّ إِلَى سَفْكِ الدِّمَاءِ تَرَكْنَاهُمْ. When he says حَيَّ عَلَى الصَّلَاةِ, we go pray. When he says come and shed blood, we leave him. We pray behind him. He's a Muslim. He's a tyrant ruler. We have to pray salah behind him. So they never called anyone kafir. So this is a very important issue. This jihad, it creates harshness, it creates intolerance, it creates extremism and ghulu, being a radical in religion, where my way or the highway, my way or the highway, this is the only way, this is the only right way, every other way is wrong. And that's why these people, every other way of practicing Islam will be wrong, or maybe kufr as well. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said in a hadith, he said, "Iyyakum wal ghulu fi din." Avoid this extreme, this harshness in religion. This means, it's a very vast meaning in all aspects, but this is one of the aspects. فَإِنَّمَا أَهْلَكَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ الْغُلُوُ فِي الدِّينِ. The people before you, they were destroyed by their ghulu, this extremism in religion that destroyed them, the nations before you. Ya Ahl, the Quran says, Ya Ahl al-Kitab, la taghlu fi dinikum. Allah addressed the people of the book, la taghlu fi dinikum. Don't be extreme. Of course, it's specific, but it covers all the various types of extremism. Extremism in the way, or the methodology, or the aqidah, or the understanding, or the way of thinking. This is the only way. Not to accept that there's another way. Not to accept that there's another way. We have these differences even in our fiqh rulings. Those who have knowledge, you will find they are the most tolerant. The more knowledge you have, the more tolerant you become as a Muslim. The one who is intolerant, know for a fact, this guy is ignorant. That's why we find scholars, the greater the alim, the greater the scholar, the more tolerant he is of different groups. I've seen this through my own experience of my teachers. The greater the scholar, the more deep the person in knowledge, the more tolerant that person is. The less in knowledge, the more rigid, the more narrow-minded, the more harsh. He can't see beyond this small tunnel vision, this just one small alleyway, because this is the only alleyway he's seen, or the only street he's seen in his life. The more they increase in knowledge, the more tolerant. And this is why we see those scholars of the world who are deep, immersed in knowledge. They understand deepness and the vastness. They are tolerant. They are tolerant behind these differences of opinion. We fight about some of these issues that cause controversies. I know I've just gone slightly off topic, but I'm coming back. But these controversial issues, we lack some of our youngsters, and this actually happens, that instead of practicing deen, waking up for Salatul Layl, Qiyamul Layl, Tahajjud Salah, making dua to Allah, offering your 5-time prayers with khushu', khudu', having devotion in Salah, having good manners, good character, being a nice, gentle Muslim man or a woman. People like to fight and argue about how to pray Salah, about Aqidah, is Allah everywhere, is He on His throne? Sensationalize these things, be aggressive about these issues. Most, 95% of these things, we don't even need to know about them. We will not even be questioned about them on the Day of Judgment. And these are the same people who become harsh. Then when these things happen, they go straight because there's only one way. Arguing. There was two brothers the other day, last week, I heard them. They were having a massive argument about, saying Ameen in Salah loudly or silently. Ameen or Ameen. No problem. There was an incident that took place in the subcontinent in India when the British were ruling. There was a masjid, some people came and they started saying Ameen loudly. Now, Ameen loudly is called jihad in Arabic. And the other ones were saying, no, you have to say silent. Different opinions. There's hadith on both sides. So anyway, they argued so much that there's, punched, and they fought one another. The masjid, there was fight going on. So the rule of the British, the police were called, but there's two groups are fighting. Anyway, the issue went to the courts. The judge was a non-Muslim. So what's the big issue here? The masjid's being locked up, closed. He said there's these people, they fought about Ameen bil jahr or Ameen bil sir. Ameen loudly and Ameen silently, sir. So the judge said, now, I don't know anything about this. I'll have to study. I'll have to go and study and look at the books and then maybe decide. So anyway, he said, tomorrow, case adjourned. Tomorrow we'll carry on with the case. So the next day, the judge, the non-Muslim judge, he sat down. He said, I did a lot of research. I did mutala'a and research at night. And I looked, there are some evidences for Ameen bil jahr in the hadith. And there are some evidences for Ameen bil sir, silent as well. But there's no evidences for Ameen bil shar. Evil Ameen. There's evidences for jahr, there's evidence for sir. Do it jahr or sir, do it loudly or silently. There's hadith on both sides. But you guys are doing bil shar. This is all evil, fighting and arguing about these issues. There are people that come fight, argue about here or here. At least millions of people are not even praying. Whether they pray in any way, shape, or form, let them pray. Be calm. This is how the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought Islam to the Sahaba. And then I will go on to this verse. Allah says, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. O Messenger of Allah, because of Allah's mercy, لِنْتَ لَهُمْ, you were gentle towards them. If you look in the tafsir of this ayah, لِنْتَ لَهُمْ, whom is not referring to Muslims, not only restricted to the Muslims. It's actually first and foremost to the mushrikeen, the kuffar of Makkah. You were gentle, you were kind, you were considerate towards the non-Muslims. This is why they did not leave you and they did not disperse from around you. وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا, O Messenger of Allah, if you were harsh, فَضًّا, like many of so-called practicing people. You know, this one brother, I was giving a lecture in a university, and I saw him very tense, and like throughout the lecture, he kept on giving me like dirty looks, and So afterwards, I said to him, brother, is everything okay? Something wrong? If you need some help, you just look very tense. He said, I've actually become practicing now. He said, it's 2 weeks I've become practicing. What's practicing? Did you understand the joke? Nobody laughed. I've become practicing, which means what? Since I've become practicing, that means now I can't even smile. What's practicing got to do with being harsh, aggressive? The Messenger ﷺ would always have a smile. Always have one of the sunnah of his ﷺ is to smile. Abu ad-Darda radiallahu anhu used to always smile. His wife said to him, Darda once said to him, that, oh Abu Darda, don't keep on smiling. يَقُولُ النَّاسِ إِنَّكَ لَمَجْنُونَ. People will say you're a madman. He said, I don't care if they call me madman or not. I saw my beloved sallallahu alayhi wa sallam always smiling, so that's why I always smile. Jarir bin Abdullah al-Bajali says, radiyallahu anhu, مَا حَجَبَنِي رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم منذ أسلمت وَلَا رَآنِي إِلَّا تَبَسَّمَ فِي وَجْهِي. Since I became a Muslim, he never created a barrier between me and him, and never did he see me except he smiled in my face. With Muslims or non-Muslims, what's this harshness? This, it doesn't mean if you become practicing that you become all harsh and I'm serious. Of course we are serious. But you could be serious, you could still smile. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wasn't he serious? The hadith says he was da'imul bishr. He was da'imul bishr. Always pleasant, smiling. But at the same time, mutawasilul ahzan. Continuously sad. So the commentators of the hadith, they explain that how can you be continuously sad and always be pleasant? So the answer is that externally he was always smiling, pleasant, but in the mind and the heart he was always sad about the ummah. He never showed his sadness to the people. When we are depressed, we make everybody else depressed around us. Our problems is like, oh no, I've got a headache. You have your wife and your son and your daughter and everybody needs to know you've got a headache. The Messenger ﷺ had all the sorrows in the heart, but externally, well, alhamdulillah, I'm fine, I'm happy. Internally, there's concern and worry about the ummah. So, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. With the mushrikeen, he was gentle. And this is why we need to bring this. The first point, we need to bring ilm into our communities, and then this will create tolerance, and this will create pleasantness. This will create a good character, good manners, and the greatest da'wah and the greatest weapon in our jihad is husnul khuluq. This is the greatest weapon of jihad. Islam did not spread by the sword or by the gun or by the bullet. Most of you and myself and many of you, you're probably ancestors, many of them are from subcontinent of India, maybe Fiji, but then going back to subcontinent of India, Pakistan, or the subcontinent of India. How did Islam come there? A group of Sahaba, radiallahu anhum, traders, they did not go to do jihad. They did not create a group of ISIS in India. They went there as traders. And the way they traded, Muslims are truthful, the way they trade. Their akhlaq, their manners, the way they would honor the customers, the way they would deal. Today in England, people say, Muslims say, I'd rather deal with a non-Muslim than a Muslim. Because Muslim doesn't pay his debt on time. I'm sure it's much better here. But in England, many Muslim businessmen, they always say, a non-Muslim British man will come and give 2 pence back if you gave him extra change. A Muslim will make sure he takes 1 penny with him. It's true. Seriously, this is true. I know lots of businessmen have said that they are truthful. They don't pay what Muslims don't pay. Debts on time. They oppose their promises. What example do we set on the non-Muslims? Yeah, these people, they come and they create injustices, they loot the system, they lie, deceive, cheat, fraud, all of these things. And then how can we present a good image of Islam? We become barriers. This is the greatest problem. We cheat the system. There is no place for cheating the system in Islam. Lying and then taking money and taxes and all the issues that we know about. So the greatest da'wah tool that we have and the greatest jihad tool we have is husnul khulq. And this is what we call gentleness. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Inna Allah rafiqun yuhibbu rifqa fil amri kulli. Indeed, Allah is gentle and He loves gentleness in every matter. In every matter. The next issue, and I'm going to try to summarize some of these issues, and some of these things have been discussed already, that with the verses of jihad, because there's ignorance, because there's jihad, with all these verses of jihad and all these ahadith, these elements and these people, they are radicalized by these verses. And the solution to that is having discussions like we had before Salatul Isha. Presenting the proper context of these verses. To understand the context, not take things out of context. And I think one of the speakers, I think Mufti Shuja'at, mentioned the story of Khaybar, in Hudayfa bin Yaman radiallahu anhu, before Salatul Isha, he mentioned. Again, I was talking about promises. Muslims keep promises. In Islam, there's protection of life, of wealth, of property, of promises, of dignity. This incident where Hudayfa bin Yaman and his father, they were going to Medina to meet the Muslims, and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on the way, Abu Jahl captured them. We're not going to let you go. He said, no, please let us go. No, we will not let you go. You're going to join them in Badr because they're fighting against us. Remember, this is a massive battle. Every Sahabi wanted to be part of Badr. Muslims were less in number, less in sword, less in horses, and they actually needed cattle. They were starving out of hunger and thirst. So these two were going. Abu Jahl's people said, no, you can't go. They said, okay. Then finally, they said, we promise you that we will not join the army. They said, okay, if you promise. But imagine, even the non-Muslim enemies trusted them. At that time, they would promise. Abu Jahl trusted his tribe. You promise, because they know they will not break the promise. They trusted the Muslims. Okay, if you promise you go to Medina, you will not join their army, we'll let you go. They went, Hudayfa and his father Yaman radiallahu anhu, they went to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, they became Muslims. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, then they asked him that you are about to have the battle of Badr, can we join the Muslim army? The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said no. They said, we were forced to take this promise. They forced us. He said, no. A believer does not break his promise. He does not go against his promise. Mu'ahada, awfu bil uhud. Oh, you who believe, fulfill your uhud. You know, when we live in these countries, we've promised. Having a citizenship in Canada or in the United Kingdom, or coming into a country and you have a visa, that visa is a ahad. This is what the scholars say. That visa or the citizenship, if you don't want to obey the law of the country, don't have the citizenship. By Islamic law, it is compulsory to obey the law of the land that you're living in. Unless it forces you to commit a sin. If it says that you can't offer Salatul Fajr, then of course, لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. There is no disobedience to the creation which results in the disobedience of the Creator. So if, for example, the law states that you have to drive on a particular speed, brothers, you have to, if you go above that speed, it's sinful according to Islam as well. Some people say, oh, we live in non-Muslim countries, let's just loot them. It's there, it's halal, money, everything halal. It's kuffar, money, kullu halal, mashallah, akhi. The incident of Khaybar, the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and the companions, they besieged the fort of Khaybar. In Khaybar, it's a long story about Khaybar. But what happened, there was a person called Aswad Ra'i. He was a shepherd. He came out from the fort of Khaybar, he used to work for his Jewish master. And he came out just to see who are these Muslims. He had a bit of interest. He came with all his cattle, sheep and all the cattle that he brought with him. He came to the Muslims, and then somebody, he asked, who's man minkum Muhammad, who's Muhammad amongst you? Somebody said that is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He went to him and he spoke to him. He said, who are you, what do you teach, etc. Long story to cut short. Finally, Islam set in his heart and he embraced Islam. He said, okay, I say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. He was actually just a shepherd working for his Jewish master who was in the opposing army. Anyway, he became Muslim. After that, the battle was starting with the Jews. So he asked the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam that, what do I do? So the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, well, right now the Muslims are engaging in jihad. So the first thing, even there's no salat time right now, so there's no fajr now, there's no dhuhr now, there's no asr. Now the fard is of jihad, we are engaged in warfare, so you have to join the army. But when he was joining, he said, wait, before you join, all this cattle, sheep, goats, is that yours? He said, no, I'm just a worker, I'm a ra'i. That's why his name was Aswad Ra'i, a shepherd. So where's your master? Who does he belong to? Where's your employer, your boss? He said, he's in the opposing army, he's actually very anti-against you. He's in Khaybar, you're going to attack. Do all these animals belong to him? He said, yes, they all belong to him. He said, okay. First job, forget jihad. Take all this back, go and give it back to your master, who's in the opposing army. Remember, when it's religious war, when it's proper legal warfare, then the enemy's wealth becomes halal. When there's a proper warfare taking place, jihad, then of course. But because this person took all this cattle on an oath, as a ahad, as a promise, when he was not in a warfare, the Messenger ﷺ said, no, go back and return all of this to your Jewish master, who is a non-Muslim, who is in the opposing army, and return and then come back and then ask me, then maybe you can join our, and maybe then you can fight him as well, then you might kill him in the war. But right now you have to give all the cattle and sheep back to him. Imagine. So when people say today, how can they justify, oh brother, we live in these kuffar, they hate the Muslim, everything's halal, because it's easy, we're like, let's loot them, rob everything, whatever you can get. It's really just to fill the stomach and the money and the pockets. Because they're enemies of Islam. No justification of that. Amana is on its place, the laws of jihad are on its place. There's difference. Amana, a Muslim is ameen. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu awfu bil uhud. We contractual obligations by living in these countries. We are citizens of this country. And also Islam, there's no, like one of the speakers said before as well, there's no force. Lakum dinukum waliya din. Faman sha'a falyu'min wa man sha'a falyakfur. There's no compulsion. There's no force. Nobody is coerced into believing into Islam. There's religious freedom. And again, this verse was mentioned many times. لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم أن تبروهم وتقسطوا إليهم إن الله يحب المقسطين. Allah does not prevent you from being kind, from being generous, from being just towards those people who don't fight you, who don't drive you out of their homes. And the basic message is this, and this is the basic principle, that the basic principle I'm going to end inshallah, I'm just 10 more minutes. That to kill civilians, and all these questions that were discussed, to kill civilians and to kill and target non-combatants, there's no place for that. People ask about suicide bombings, whether suicide or non-suicide. If you're killing anyone, your next door neighbor, why are you being angry at your next door neighbor? He's not the policy maker. Did he make the policy? If you can kill that non-Muslim, you can kill me and you as well. Because we're the same, we're living in the same country. So killing those people who have nothing to do, and many non-Muslims actually disagree with the policy making, foreign policy. Many do. We speak to many of them, many who know the reality. They do not agree with the policy. How many people, in England, in London, we had many marches, more non-Muslims marched for the cause of the Palestinians and Gaza than Muslims. More non-Muslims. You go to the marches in London, 70% are non-Muslims. Young men and women, young girls, university students, English girls, they're sat there, they're sitting there, they've got their flags for Gaza, for Palestine. Non-Muslims, many of them. There are so many non-Muslims who stand up, they do more for other Muslims than we do. I remember that person who went for humanitarian aid in Syria. What was his name? And he was killed. He went to help Muslim brothers and sisters in Syria. How can you justify taking that person's life? There is no place for all of this. But the problem is, we know about this. The problem is this crisis of ignorance, where people don't understand, they haven't learned about this. They've been given a very narrow tunnel vision, very tunnel vision of the understanding of Islam. I'm going to end on this point, that of course this is the biggest, so the biggest root cause is ignorance, which creates harshness, which creates this extremeness in a person. It's like, literally it's ghilwa in a person. Whereas the teaching of Islam is all about mercy. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was rahmatan lil alameen. There's numerous verses. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Not just for the believers, for the whole of mankind. You know, there was one of the Imams, you may have heard of his name, Imam Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Shaybani, rahimahullah. He was a student of Abu Hanifa. He was living in a locality in Iraq a long time ago. He, his next door neighbor was a Jewish man. A Jewish man. This Jewish man put his house for sale, but the price was double. Price was double. Not because it was in Canada and inflation or whatever, right? Or the economy or whatever. But the price was double. So the buyer who came to purchase the house, he said, "What's wrong? Double price? It's double." He said, "Yes." This was a Jewish man. He said, "Yeah, in my house, if you want to buy it, this is the price. It's double. One price for the house, the other price for living next to a great man as Muhammad ibn Hassan. To be his neighbor, you have to pay double. People want you to just be his neighbor. A Muslim lives in a neighborhood. The non-Muslims, when you leave that neighborhood, they come and beg you, please don't leave our neighborhood. Because of you, there's so much great goodness in our neighborhood. Not because you make so much noise and Ramadan time you're just causing all the smell as well and all the noise and sound. And we have to respect. We don't live. When we do Ramadan, the whole world is not doing Ramadan. We have next door neighbors, non-Muslims. They have to wake up for work. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he would wake up for tahajjud salah at night, the hadith says qama ruwaydan, he would tiptoe, so that his beloved wife Aisha radiallahu anha would not wake up. When we wake up, we make a big sound, like making sure everybody knows I woke up for tahajjud. Allah, Allah. So people know, you know what, I'm offering salatul tahajjud. Do it for the sake of Allah. He tiptoed. Yes, for Fajr, wake her up. He may have told her to wake up, or woke her up sometimes, or when he's waking up early, he's not disturbing his own family. When we are in Ramadan, this is our job in these communities. We live in Muslim or non-Muslim neighborhoods. The way we act, the way we behave, the way we drive cars, the way we speak, the way we converse, the way we talk. When we celebrate our Eid, when Ramadan comes, we make sure we don't disturb anybody. The way we park cars around the masajid, we don't block entrances. When you find these radicals who are radicalized, there's no laws. Brother Akhi, put your car anywhere, no problem. These are all kuffar. They get stuck, let them get stuck. One brother said this. He just put his car at entrance of a hospital. Seriously? An ambulance couldn't come out. They say, Akhi, if the kuffar, they die, it's good. We're laughing, but it's quite serious. How do you know? Forget kuffar, you could be, your grandfather could be in the hospital. Your brother, your sister, who Muslims are in the hospital. But when you become this radicalized, your mind is just too narrow. It's just too, like it's too small to anything to come into that mind. And this is why this is our job, to open. But before I come to that job, one point and then just 3 practical steps and I'm ending. At the same time, we need to understand this point, that there's a difference. I've talked about this radicalized extreme ghulu in religion and what causes it. But we need to really understand there's a difference between at-tatarruf ad-dini, this extreme radicalism and extremism, or whatever those terms mean, but we know the meaning what I'm talking about. Between that and being conservative, again another term I'm using, but forget about the terms, but being a practicing conservative Muslim. Understand this carefully, and this is the last point. The difference between being an extremist, radical, a violent person, easy way to understand, being a violent and being a conservative, a practicing religious person. One of the problems that many of the non-Muslims are having, failing to distinguish and rather putting the two together, and now the policymakers are making the two together. In the UK, they recently, the Prime Minister and many others, they were coming out with expressions like this, that we're not just going to fight violent extremism, we're going to fight non-violent extremists, conservative, those who are basically the ones who are praying 5 times a day, those who attend masjids. And they are targeting scholars, imams, one by one. Any imam who's becoming a bit popular, who has a lot of following, one by one they want to stop them from giving lectures, from going to universities, one by one. For them, like Sheikh Hasim was saying these terms about being a moderate, for them, they want moderate Islam, means someone who doesn't pray, someone who's, basically Islam is then just like, a few rituals, few celebrations, few times jumping up and down, few qasaid and nasheeds we've had, and, nice, tolerant, everyone's nice, loves you, I love you, she loves her, and he loves him, and everyone, Jesus loves you, and everyone loves everybody, all just, fine. This is the type of Islam they want. Just celebration, that's it, just celebrate a few things, have a bit of, qawwali, musiqi, music. Forget praying. When it comes to laws, becomes you're a radical. This is what we need to understand. There's a difference between the two, and we need to speak to the policymakers, in these countries. The imams have this job, and everyone else has this job. That look, the people who are causing this violent extremism is not because of being conservative. Actually, the ones who pray 5 times, who've been praying all their lives, not for 2 weeks. Yeah, the ones who pray for 2 weeks will go and cause violent extremism. But the ones who've been praying, who've been from young age, who are learning Quran, they come to madrasa, they study, ilm, knowledge, creates tolerance. Those are the people you want on your side. You just want those people who just dance. They know, because most of the Muslims will not listen to them anyway, because they think these people are not proper Muslims, or they're not practicing Muslims, So bring those scholars and those Muslims who are conservative, who are practicing, who offer 5-time prayers, who have institutions on your side. They are the ones who will preach based on sound knowledge, sound understanding, based on Quran and Sunnah, based on Quran and Hadith, not just some other things. So there's a difference between the two. Being conservative, we all have to practice our deen. And this is why they're very afraid of Sharia law. I've had some of these discussions. Sharia law, what is Sharia law? I heard in the United States as well, they want you to ban Sharia law. Sharia law means Islam, it means Islamic jurisprudence. We offer Salatul Isha as part of Sharia law. Wudu is part of Sharia law. Zakat is part of Sharia law. Marriage, do you marry? Everyone marries. You're practicing Sharia law. If you want to ban Sharia law, you can't get married, brothers. You're going to be bachelors all your life, the ones who you're not married. This is what Sharia, everything is Sharia law. But they bring these problems that people are forcing Sharia law. There's no force. Nobody's forced to do anything. No one's forced. You're not forced to be a Muslim, let alone forced to practice an act of Islam. There is no force. And many of them, some of them have said that we are infringing on the human rights. Infringing on the human rights. You're forcing a sister to wear the hijab. Nobody's forcing. There are sisters who wear the hijab because they are passionate about it themselves. They want to wear it themselves. Whether it's hijab or even the niqab. If somebody wants to wear the niqab, that's their right. Nobody's forcing nobody. You're taking away the basic human right of a woman because you're forcing her to do this or you're subjugating her to do that. These are basic human rights. I did a lecture once in one of the universities. I said, if that's the issue, and Sharia law is not just hijab and niqab. It's not just about man and woman, wife and whatever. Sharia law is about salah as well. It's about prayer as well. So if that means that if you're saying that you're infringing upon the basic human rights of someone by saying that this is what you have to do as a man or a woman, then okay, if I as an imam, somebody comes, brother here comes and asks me, do I have to offer Salatul Fajr in Islam? I'll say yes. If I don't offer Salatul Fajr, what happens? Brother, it's a sin. You become sinful. What time is Salatul Fajr? Well, in the winter, in the summer, it's 4 a.m. So that means I'm telling you, you have to wake up 4 a.m. So now are you going to, or those elements are going to turn around and say, I am infringing upon your international human right to sleep. His human rights are being violated. He has to break his sleep 4 a.m. In Ramadan, you're fasting until 9:30. I am telling people, as an imam, you have to fast. I am infringing on your basic international human right to eat and drink. You're telling someone to starve. Nobody's telling no one to starve. We're saying this is a law of Islam, you have to fast. This is a law of Islam, you have to pray. This is a law of Islam, you have to cover your head. We can't change. This is a very important point, that we are against this extremism, this tatarruf ad-dini. But as far as Islamic laws, established Islamic rules are concerned, they have never changed, they will never change. And we will never change them. Islam will not become like some other faiths where it's diluted. If homosexuality is unlawful, then it's unlawful. We will not justify homosexuality just because we want to please you. We don't hate a sinner, we hate the sin. We don't hate a disbeliever, we hate the disbelief. We don't have hatred towards kufr, towards a kafir, but the kufr. We don't have hatred towards the sinful man or woman, but the sinful act. An homosexual person or a lesbian woman, someone involved in the act of homosexuality, we don't hate them. There's no homophobia. We don't hate them. Actually, we have concern and pity, maybe more concern for them. Because homosexuality is like a sin, like not praying Fajr Salah. If someone doesn't pray, do you hate someone who doesn't pray? Well, you're not supposed to hate, you're supposed to have concern. This is my brother, this is my sister who does not pray. Make dua for them, you have concern for them. If you have a brother who's involved in homosexual activity, again, you have pity in the heart, you have concern. You don't hate them. But then we will not go to the other extreme where Islam becomes like Christianity, where the religion is diluted. We will not change the laws of Islam. These established rules of Islam, we will not stop changing. Whatever's clear in the Quran and Sunnah will remain. These are established laws. We can't change just to appease and please, we can't change the laws of the Quran. This is a very important point. And I'm going to end with this. We have the things that we need to do are three, just these final three things, and then I've ended, inshallah. 3 things. That's the responsibility for all of us, starting from the scholars, from the imams, and every one of you. You've taken a lot of knowledge today. Is to have a dialogue with these elements, if you want to use that word, or these brothers and sisters of ours. They are Muslims. The extreme elements, or the ones with extreme ideologies. We need to talk to them. We need to convey the right message based on sound evidence and reasoning. That's why we understand, we take this knowledge. All these, I was telling Shaykh Asim Rashid, that all these ayat of the Quran and all these hadiths, all the verses of the Quran and all the texts of the hadith, the Quran and Sunnah, that talk about jihad, each one of them, like he discussed some of them, it should be in written format, the proper context, write a whole article, a look at the verses and the text of jihad and fighting and warfare. What each one means, a good detailed discussion in writing format, and everyone should be given a copy. It should be online, on the internet, so people know. Because some of these youngsters, they've just been Muslim for 2 weeks. Some of them have never practiced Islam, and they've just started practicing Islam, and suddenly they're the greatest mujahid. So This is, dialogue is very important, because they've been taken advantage of. Some of them are some of them, as I said, some of them are psychologically ill. Some of them have problems, in their family life. I know a lot of them, I've come across them. I've read and emails and things you see. They have family issues. Some of them, they've been deprived of love in their life. They've had family parents divorce and problems they've been abused, things like that. Very easily, someone gives them, some young teenage girls, 16-year-olds are doing jihad from United Kingdom. They ran away. You see them on Twitter and places like that. 18-year-olds, there was in the news recently, 2 sisters or something. 16-year-olds ran away. When somebody investigated, they found they came from a broken family. Just nobody's giving them no love, no attention, no father, no mother. The father and mother separated, they're both working, earning, and they have no time for the children. That's another problem. Busy earning dunya and no time for the children. Earn less, give time to children, brothers and sisters. But that's another topic. So they were deprived of love. Some extremist person in ISIS or whatever, he's 20, 21-year-old or 18-year-old. He probably came from that background as well, gave a bit of love to the sister, Mufti, my sister, come here, inshallah, we get married, we go Jannah together. She's like, oh, mashallah, this is amazing jihad, and this is love. And I ran away to Syria, and 18-year-old married to a 16-year-old, they're married. They do jihad, they say, we'll go Jannah, we'll go together, we'll be martyred, and in Qabr and in Jannah, inshallah, we'll make love there. Seriously, this is what happens. There's no mind. We really need to focus, talk to them, bring some sense into them. Ilm. So this is very important. That's number one. Number two, so this is number one, dialogue with these people. Everyone's responsibility to talk. Not just talk, but based on proper evidences and teach them. Number two, there should be dialogue with the policymakers and the government and the people in authority. This is the job of not everybody, but imams and activists and people in the media, or people in high positions of the community. It's your responsibility, brothers and sisters. It's your responsibility to talk to the people in authority. That look, this is the true message of Islam. You need to be on our side. You need to be on our side. You need to be with the conservative Muslims. We're all conservative. Anybody not conservative? We all pray to Salatul Isha, so I'm sure you're conservative. You need to be on the side of the Muslims who pray, who come to the mosque, who take their religion seriously, come to the masjid, be connected to us. And together, we can help one another avoid these things. So have dialogue with the people in authority. And number three, the third responsibility, which is everyone's responsibility, is to always constantly talk and have dialogue and discuss with the general non-Muslims. Anyone you're traveling, you're in a taxi or the train, I don't know if you guys travel on the train here or not, but wherever you are, in the plane, I try my best whenever I'm traveling in the plane, which is quite frequent. I always, the person next to me on the right or the left, you don't have to start talking about, okay, shall I explain to you the meaning of jihad? No. Of course, it takes about 2 hours before you reach that discussion. First, you just take your samosa out, and this is your samosa, pastry, you want this, how are you, where are you from? Have a good discussion, talk, don't be a serious Muslim man or woman. You can smile. Even if it's a woman, if you're a man, don't worry, if you just keep your gaze low but talk. Don't be extreme like, So talk to the non-Muslims. Inshallah, when they'll see the positiveness of, you can talk about the dunya, things like that, just talk about the weather, about sports, and things like that, and things, then once you have that click, then inshallah they'll see, and then they'll get close to Islam, because what they see in the media, they always see some ISIS or this or that. They haven't seen, many of them haven't seen how Muslims interact, how they can talk, how they can speak, how sweet they are. And I'm sure when you guys talk, mashallah, with your sweetness, then they will be convinced, inshallah. So these are three responsibilities, inshallah, that I'm going to stop here.